What if the most significant events in human history weren't caused by kings or wars or revolutions, but by the fear of a broken mirror? We think of history as a story of powerful men and grand armies shaping our world. But what if the real architects of our society were a collection of bizarre, forgotten beliefs? What if the most powerful force in history has been hiding in plain sight disguised as simple superstition? This is the story of how forgotten beliefs about evil glares, broken mirrors, and bad blood secretly built the modern world. You'll be surprised to discover how these ideas controlled the daily lives of millions, altered the course of science, and even decided who lived and who died. Before we dive in, if you love uncovering the hidden stories that shaped our world, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's strangest corners. For most of human history, the world was a place filled with invisible forces. Danger wasn't just a sword or a famine. It could be a look, an accident, or even a day on the calendar. To survive, you had to navigate a minefield of supernatural threats. The first, and maybe the most widespread, was the evil eye. The belief that a single, envious glare could bring illness, financial ruin, or even death was a terrifying reality for people across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and beyond. Any sudden misfortune, a sick child, a failing crop, a lame animal, could be blamed on the evil eye. This wasn't just a vague fear, it was a diagnosis. To combat this constant threat, entire cultures developed a sort of spiritual defense industry. People created protective amulets, most famously the blue glass Nazar, designed to stare right back at the world and deflect the curse. These weren't just jewelry, they were shields. People still wear them today, a faint echo of a time when a neighbor's jealousy was considered a lethal weapon. Then there was the fear of the broken mirror. To us, it's a minor hassle. To an ancient Roman, it was a catastrophe. They believed a mirror didn't just reflect your image, it held a piece of your soul. To break one was to literally shatter your own spirit. But why 7 years of bad luck? The Romans believed that life renewed itself in 7-year cycles. So, a broken soul meant you had to wait until the next cycle to be made whole again. Folklore offered a few desperate remedies, with one of the most persistent being to carefully bury the broken shards by the light of the moon, hoping to appease the forces you'd just angered. But fear wasn't just in objects, it was baked into time itself. Medieval people lived by a calendar of dread. Certain days were deemed evil or unlucky, a belief so powerful that almanacs printed lists of them. Friday the 13th is the one we all know today, but back then, there were dozens of others to worry about. On these days you didn't travel, you didn't start a business, you definitely didn't get married. An entire society would collectively pause, held captive by the belief that the date itself could bring disaster. This wasn't just folklore, it was a force that could grind economies and armies to a halt, all because of a shared, unshakable feeling that some days were just born bad. We like to think of science as a steady march of progress, but for centuries its path was twisted by some truly bizarre ideas. The most dominant and dangerous of these was the theory of the four humors. Ancient Greek and Roman physicians believed the body was filled with four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health was a state of perfect balance, and sickness was just a sign that you had too much of one humor. And the cure? Well, it was terrifyingly simple. Get the extra humor out. This led to the single most common medical procedure for over 2,000 years: bloodletting. Got a fever? You have too much blood, let's drain some. Suffering from depression? That's too much black bile, but letting some blood should help anyway. From epilepsy to the plague, bloodletting was the answer. Doctors, priests, and even barbers performed it using lancets or, honestly, hordes of leeches. In 19th century France, doctors used around 35 million leeches a year. For longer than the entire Christian era, the pinnacle of medicine was a practice that actively weakened, and often killed, the patient. Just as the body's fluids were misunderstood, so was the mind. The term lunacy comes right from the Latin word for moon, luna. For centuries it was an accepted medical fact that a full moon could cause madness. A person's erratic behavior wasn't seen as a symptom of mental illness but as a celestial problem. This belief profoundly shaped how society treated the mentally ill, seeing them not as patients who needed care, but as victims of an uncontrollable cosmic force. But surely the great minds of the scientific revolution were immune to this stuff, right? Well, this is where things get really strange. Meet Sir Isaac Newton, the man who gave us the laws of motion and universal gravitation, the father of modern physics. He was also secretly an obsessive alchemist. Newton spent countless hours poring over ancient texts, convinced they held the secret to the philosopher's stone, a mythical substance that could turn lead into gold and grant eternal life. When he died, his personal library had more books on alchemy than on math and physics combined. He believed he was chosen by God to find hidden codes in the Bible and even use them to predict the apocalypse, which he calculated would happen no earlier than 2060. The most rational mind of his generation believed the universe was a divine puzzle, and that magic, faith, and science were all just different keys to unlock it. If you're finding this hidden side of history as fascinating as we do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. And we have to ask, what's the strangest superstition you still follow? Let us know in the comments below. Strange beliefs didn't just stay in the home or the lab, they scaled up, shaping economies, politics, and even the symbols of entire religions. In medieval Europe, the most valuable currency wasn't gold, it was faith. Specifically, faith in the power of holy relics. The fingerbone of a saint, a splinter from the true cross, a vial of a martyr's blood. These weren't just objects to be respected, they were engines of miracles. They were believed to heal the sick, protect entire cities, and guarantee salvation. This belief created a massive tourism industry as millions of pilgrims traveled across the continent to visit shrines. Entire cathedrals and towns were built to house these relics, their economies completely dependent on the stream of faithful visitors. This belief in the power of sacred objects literally drew the map of medieval Europe, creating centers of power and wealth based on little more than bone and faith. Sometimes a strange belief could come from a simple mistake. In an early Greek translation of the Old Testament, a Hebrew word for a powerful one-horned wild ox was translated as which became in Latin. And just like that, the unicorn entered the Bible. For medieval Christians, this was no fantasy creature. It was real, and it became a powerful symbol for Jesus Christ. The legend said a unicorn was an untamable beast that could only be pacified by a virgin, a perfect allegory for Christ's incarnation through the Virgin Mary. Because of a single mistranslation, this mythical creature was carved into churches, woven into tapestries, and painted into religious masterpieces for centuries. A simple mistake became sacred doctrine. But beliefs could also be weapons. The fear of witchcraft simmered in Europe for centuries, a dormant superstition about curses and dark magic. But in the late Middle Ages, it exploded into a full-blown hysteria. This wasn't just folklore, it became law. People, overwhelmingly women, were accused of making pacts with the devil, souring milk, killing livestock, and raising storms. These accusations were treated with deadly seriousness, leading to brutal trials and horrific executions. This belief wasn't a footnote in history, it was a state-sanctioned terror, a mass panic fueled by the fear of a hidden supernatural enemy that resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands. A belief in its most extreme form had been given the power of life and death. So, was history shaped by kings and revolutions? Yes. But it was also carved out by these invisible forces. By the fear of a spiteful glare, the terror of a shattered soul, and the conviction that draining a sick person's blood would somehow make them healthy. From the medicine we used to the symbols we worshipped to the very laws that governed us, these strange beliefs weren't side notes to history. They were often the authors of its most dramatic chapters. They reveal a fundamental human need to explain the unexplainable and to control the uncontrollable. It makes you wonder, what widely held beliefs of our own time, the ideas we hold as obviously true, will seem just as strange to the historians of the future? If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of the past. Thanks for watching.